because I like to move it along. You like it when I move along too, don't you? You don't want to hang around, yeah. 3. We have 1 planning board, 2 code. The code was. All right, that's so funny. Okay. All right, I'd like to call to order the January 20th, 2026 meeting of the West Palm Beach Planning Board. Madam Clerk, if you please call the roll.
Jean Marseille Jr.
Present.
Patrick Mayfield.
Present.
Will Corrente.
In attendance.
Stephen Mayans.
Present.
Deborah Rain.
Present.
Let the record reflect that Peter Pivko, Sam Fish, and Tanya Kushakshin are not present.
All right, thank you. Next order of business is approval of the December 16th, 2025 minutes. Has everyone had the opportunity to review them? And if so, are there any changes or corrections? Hearing none, may I have a motion for approval?
I move.
Motion and second?
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is report of the planning staff. Ms. Van.
Good evening, Board. Angela Van, Assistant Development Service Director. I will give you an update since the, I guess it has to be November, Planning Board meeting. First case that was approved by the City Commission was subdivision design standards. This staff brought before you in September of last year, which has amended our subdivisions standards to basically be consistent with state statutes. And Commission approved this at their December 8th meeting by a 5-0 vote. Next was City Place at 550 South Rosemary. These were 2 resolutions that you heard in October. There were 2 office tower and retail space, and you approved 3 waivers from the City Place Development Regulations for active use and plan of break requirements. The Commission heard this last night at their January 20th meeting. They approved it by 4-0 vote. And that includes staff presentation of updates. One thing staff would like to do before we go on, would like to introduce Stephanie Gregory. She's the new Planning and Zoning Administrator. Come to us from Palm Beach County, where she spent 18 years at Palm Beach County. So she'll be doing this presentation at some point. Welcome, Stephanie.
All right, well, welcome. All right, thank you so much. Any questions of staff? Thank you, Ms. Van. Next on our agenda are remarks by the chairperson, of which I have none. That will then lead us to the declaration of ex parte communications. Let me begin by stating that at a Zoom meeting with the applicant on Planning Board case number 1674H, nevertheless, I will be basing my decision solely upon the evidence presented to us this evening. As to all other matters before us tonight, I have had no ex parte communications. I received no written communications. I have conducted no investigations, made no site visits, and received no expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made a part of the record. And let's start with you, Deborah.
Okay. As it relates to the matters before us this evening, I have not had ex parte communications. I have not received written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit, and I have not received expert opinions. And I do request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
Thank you. Will.
As to all matters on the agenda this evening, I have not had ex parte communications. I've not received written communications. I've not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit. I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
With respect to tonight's agenda items, I have not had ex parte communications.
I have not received written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit. I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to all matters on the agenda, I have not had ex parte communications. I have not received written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit. I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
Thank you so much. That then brings us to the swearing in of the speakers. Would everyone who plans to speak or offer testimony this evening please stand up and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be truthful?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated. Next on our agenda are continued cases, of which there are none. That then brings us to Planning Board Case Number 1674H. May we hear from the applicant?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Board. For the record, Harvey Oyer of Bowen, honored to be here on behalf of the Norton Museum of Art, one of the great institutions in our community, which I'm delighted to share with you, needs to expand once again, which is wonderful for our community. I am joined by the CEO of the Norton, as well as the entire professional team, should you have any questions. So to set the stage, I'm going to preview what the request is. Then the more interesting part will be handled by architect Jill Lanigan. She will walk you through the pretty pictures and what the design concepts are. And then I will come back up to talk about two minor waiver requests and some conditions proposed by the staff that we're not yet in agreement on that I want to describe to you. I imagine that you will then let that go on to City Commission and let us try to work that out with staff in the meantime. So that's what we're going to cover tonight. While a large and complex project, the zoning approval is actually pretty simple. You know the site. It is bounded by Olive Avenue on the east, Jefferson on the north, Crane's Nest on the south, Dixie on the west for the main museum facility, and there is a 2.5-acre parking lot between Dixie, the FEC, Woodlawn, and Palm Street. It is a CSPD, a community service plan development. It was built originally by famous architect in Florida's history named Marion Sims Wyeth in 1941 for Ralph Norton. Marion Sims Wyeth, of course, did Mar-a-Lago, the governor's mansion, noted architect, noted piece of architecture. The most recent happening here was a 2015 approval by this board, which, Mr. Chairman, you'll probably remember, which was to allow the most recent expansion. Well, as part of that approval, you not only approved, and the City Commission not only approved a phase 1, but also a future anticipated phase 2. We are that future anticipated phase 2. If you're wondering if it was already approved, why are we back? Because the footprint of it looks different. It's bigger, it's different, so it triggers a major modification to the CSPD. That is why we were back in front of you. So our request this evening is, as I stated, adding additional building square footage than what was approved 11 years ago. We are adding a parking structure on that Dixie parking, present surface parking site. It will be partial surface, partial structured parking to accommodate the additional square footage, adding a drop-off on Olive, and reconfiguring the surface parking to accommodate the garage. So that's the high-level request. Let me put some numbers to it. We were previously approved for a gross building area of 171,000 square feet, 39 of which was this phase 2. Our phase 2 is 61,000, so call it 50% larger than what was approved 11 years ago. The majority of that is in the main museum, and about 2,400 square feet of it is a garage liner to hide the parking garage on Palm Street. So it would bring us, should we be approved, to a proposed GBA of 233,000 square feet, spread over a number of acres. We are still well within our FAR limitation. So there's no height issue, there's no FAR limitation, there's no density issue, so the normal metrics that you deal with, we're not dealing with this evening. We are developing well within the box. What programming is included in this edition? I'm not going to read all of this to you. You can see that we are either adding to or creating for the first time a number of things that will further serve the public. And Jill will go into this and actually show you imagery of all of it and where it will be located. So with that, I am going to turn it over to my colleague Jill Lanigan of Song & Associates, and I will be back up to discuss 2 minor waivers and the issues that we're not yet in agreement on with the staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. Good evening again. I'm Jill Lanigan with Song & Associates Architects. Very pleased to be here this evening and share this exciting project for the Norton with you. Song & Associates will be serving as the local architect of record for the project, working closely with Foster & Partners Architects as the design architect. As you may know, they were the architects of the most recent expansion of the Norton and hoping to continue that further design vision. I'll begin tonight with just a little bit of orientation, some of which Harvey already covered, but you see here on the screen, the Norton is really in 2 general areas. East of Dixie Highway is the main museum, as well as historic homes along the north side of Crane's Nest Way. And west of Dixie Highway, we have the current surface parking lot, which is where the parking garage structure and liner space will be developed, as well as some enhanced pathways to reach the museum. The museum expansion includes 4 primary areas, which I'll talk about tonight. Beginning at the north on Jefferson is the existing location of the loading docks and support space, and that will be remodeled and expanded vertically. The north building is there also along Jefferson and Olive. That will be developed as a 2-story addition that will include exhibition space and multi-purpose event space. Connecting on the 2nd level only to the south is what we refer to as the Lakeview Terrace, which is also multi-purpose and gallery space. And to the south building addition is a 3-story structure incorporating gallery space for the museum's expanded collection, as well as education space. So actually, I may go back for 1 second there. Just want to point out that the existing main entry to the museum will remain on Dixie Highway next to the beautiful banyan tree. And with this expansion, which you can see is largely to the east side of the museum, we'll have a few secondary entrances that'll be used for special events and special programming and educational programming. And we're also adding the addition of a drop-off along Olive. So we'll take a closer look at that ground floor and site plan of the museum. And you can see again highlighted in yellow the expansion of the museum's primary support spaces. The north building, which as I said on the ground level is exhibition space, and the 2nd level of that is an event space. That building is ringed by a series of garden rooms for sculpture gardens. And then the south building is primary location for the educational programs and also exhibition space. You can see here the proposed drop-off drive. That would serve valet drop-off for large events, and it will also serve school buses and buses that are coming for specialty programming. It will be separated from the road by removable bollards, so it'll be controlled access for those special events. To give you some beautiful imagery provided by Foster & Partners and give you a sense of the proposed architecture for this expansion, this would be the north building as viewed from Jefferson. And as I mentioned, the ground floor here is exhibition space and those beautiful sculpture garden rooms. And the 2nd floor is the multi-purpose and event space. It's designed to be very light, incorporating a lot of natural light through the glass. And the metal roof projecting out over this building is similar to the current metal roof that projects around the banyan tree. Having a very slender edge, it appears to simply float over the architecture. So a very light appearance here, both during the day and through the evenings. I mentioned the garden rooms. These would all be thoughtfully designed around the sculptures to be planned there, creating a serene environment for visitors to circulate and contemplate, each one designed uniquely for its sculpture. As we move up to the second floor, and again, I'll start at the north with the admin building. On this second level, that area will incorporate a catering kitchen and other support spaces for the event space that will be a part of the second floor of the north building addition. Connecting to the south is the space that I mentioned that is multipurpose and gallery space, as well as some roof terrace. And then to the south, gallery space on the second floor of that south building. And also you'll notice here a gallery running back to the west, connecting visitors to the existing portions of the museum on that level. And as we get a bird's eye view of that connecting Lakeview Terrace space, you'll see again here expansive glass and that very thin metal edge roof. And we're projecting with just rooftop terrace out over the original portions of the museum, so respecting that original facade of the museum. Just for orientation, to the right is that north building for the event space, and to the south, the 3-story south building, which is primarily education and gallery. And if we come around to the south side of the south building, you'll see the ground floor, again, lots of glass here opening to the existing garden spaces. And I mentioned that connecting gallery on the second level that connects back to the existing portions of the museum, and that would be a glass gallery for art glass. And finally, taking a look at the third floor of the administration building is an expansion of the museum's office space and support spaces, and the third level of the south building is again gallery for the museum's permanent collection. And if we turn our attention to the western parcel, this is the proposed location of the parking garage, which would provide 359 spaces, as well as some reconfigured surface parking totaling 83 spaces. For circulation here, this proposes entry only to the surface parking from Palm Street and exit only from the surface parking to Dixie Highway. It's trying to simplify some of that traffic circulation. And then the garage would have entry and exit on Palm Street and another secondary entry and exit to the internal surface parking area. The liner space, which becomes a visitor center to really welcome people to this experience at the museum, would front along Palm Street as well. There's bike storage and some other storage uses as well. So along Palm Street, the intention was to have an activated facade along that streetscape and also be in keeping with the context of the area, both existing and developing in that commercial area. And then we all know that one's experience of a place begins from parking, and the museum is intent on enhancing that visitor experience from the moment you arrive and park. And so there would be included an enhanced green space and pedestrian walkway to bring visitors from both the surface parking and the garage to the crosswalk and across to the museum. That could also incorporate art along the way within the landscape and begin your journey. With that, I'll turn things back over to Harvey. Finish up.
Thank you, Jill. So before we get to the waivers, there's some modifications that we're proposing to the 2015 version of the CSPD. And one of those modifications is to incorporate the new drawings with today's dates. So the 2015 version had obviously different drawings, dated and certified different dates. So one of the things we need to do is substitute in the current ones. We also want to delete what was number 11 in the 2015 version, which proposed on-street parking on Olive Avenue. So parallel parking on Olive Avenue. We would like to delete that. It was never built. It's been 11 years. Staff, one of the issues we have with staff, or they have with us, is that we don't want to build that. They are again asking us to do that. That is one of the conditions of approval we're also going to discuss. So that concept appears in here twice. Once is to delete the requirement from 11 years ago, which is number 11, and also discuss whether it's an appropriate condition of approval on this application. The reasons, and it will be more obvious, I think, when I put a graphic up of the street, they were never built for a reason. There's expensive utilities in the way, there's required easements. We more than accommodate our parking needs on our project. As you are well aware, you normally use on-street parking when you cannot provide the parking on your project site. I think we're 10 spaces more than needed on our site, so there's no need for it. It would be very expensive to do it, and probably disruptive to future utility moves. And there are no other on-street parking spaces on either side of Olive from Okeechobee Boulevard all the way down to Southern Boulevard. So we would be the only place required to do it, and it's not a requirement of our project. So we would like to delete that number 11 from the 2015 approval. Let me illustrate this for you. So this is Jefferson Street, which is on the north side of the museum. This is Olive Avenue running north and south. This is the South Flagler House construction. Here is the traffic roundabout. So at most we could squeeze 3 in here. And when you move south of the traffic roundabout, at most you could squeeze 3 more. So this is where Arcona tees into Olive. So that's the maximum we could get the benefit of. And again, they would be the only ones on Olive Avenue. But let me share with you why this is problematic. We have, cabinetry for the utilities. We have overhead power lines. We have below ground utilities. We also don't have a whole lot of real estate in here. If we were to move into our property, provide the parallel parking, we're outside of the public road right-of-way, which is typically where these are placed. We would be in our private property. We'd have to remove the trees. We'd have to move underground utilities and above ground utilities. It'd be pretty expensive. Stated differently, sort of the juice isn't worth the squeeze. These would be the most expensive 6 on-street parking spaces in the city, probably. So that is part of the reason we don't want to do it south of the roundabout. North of the roundabout, which I don't have a graphic of, I apologize. Let me see if I can go back here, or maybe even back to one of Jill's images. Here, this best illustrates it. There is simply not enough real estate between here and the face of the building to fit in everything we need to fit in. There's 36 feet from the edge of the road to the face of the building. Outside of this face of the building are these walkways that allow someone to move around the outside of the museum, from these outdoor gardens to the original historic Marion Sims Wyeth entrance down to these other gardens. So that sidewalk is 4 or 5 feet. There's landscaping on both sides of it. There's a 5-foot landscape requirement. The parking stall is 9 feet wide if we moved it inboard. We would then need the public sidewalk, which is 5 to 6 feet in width. So let me back up. 9 feet of parking space, 5 or 6 feet of sidewalk. We need 15 feet of clear underground utility easement that you can theoretically put a sidewalk on, but FPL and the other providers would prefer that it be grass. So if they have to get to it, they can. Then we have our additional landscaping, our 4-foot sidewalk to our building face. When you do all of that math, and I apologize for not having a cross-section graphic, you don't have enough real estate to do it. So in addition to making them the most expensive parking spaces, the only parking spaces on Olive, it also doesn't work for our front yard.
Harvey, you'd have to be utilizing your property in order to do it.
We would have to utilize our property to provide spaces that we don't need. We're overparked by 10. So I'm not asking you to decide this. You don't need to be the arbiter of this. I'm only stating we're not in agreement with that condition of approval. And should you be inclined to approve this project and move it forward to the City Commission, I would only ask that you allow that issue and one other issue that I'm going to bring up to be solved in the 30 or 45 days between now and City Commission. We can work with staff to do that. Should we not be able to work it out, we'll let the City Commission be the arbiter of these two issues. Just want you to be aware of what it is. In addition to that issue, which is both a holdover from 2015, a condition that was never met. It's also a proposed condition here. I also want to point out a couple of changes where we would be adding a new regulation to the 2015 version. It was not clear in that 2015 version what our front, side, and rear setbacks were. It's a little odd. We have a front door on Olive historically. We have the front door that everyone uses today, which is on Dixie, but we also have street frontage on Jefferson. So according to the code, we have 3 front setbacks, which makes it very challenging to meet the setback requirement on all 3 sides. Fortunately, because we're a PD, we can sort of do what we want to do with staff permission and your permission. So this is how we propose to designate on the East Campus and the West Campus what is our front, side, and rear setbacks. Staff is in agreement on this. There's no controversy here, but it is a minor modification to the 2015 approval to designate what our front setbacks are. Now, what are the 2 waivers? We have a waiver on the West Campus parking garage from Palm Street, because Palm Street is considered the front. If we go back to this, you will see on the West Campus, our front setback is Palm Street, which has a 25-foot setback requirement for the building, which we can meet. We have enough real estate there to do it. But then everyone on Palm Street is looking at a 3-story parking garage. So staff is in agreement, we're in agreement, we're all better off putting a liner building so that the pedestrian experience on Palm Street is more pleasant than looking at a parking garage. But that means we immediately violate the 25-foot front setback that we just established 2 slides earlier. So we would propose a 6-foot 8-inch front setback, which would get us to the face of the liner building. And the second waiver request is a landscape buffer on the west side of that parking garage against the Florida East Coast Railroad right-of-way. And let me better illustrate these for you. So the liner building is here. This would be our front setback off of Palm Street. So the Hive is over here. And the alternative to meet the code would be to shave off this liner building and meet the 25-foot setback off of Palm Street, but we'd be looking at a parking garage. So I think everyone, our neighbors, staff, our design team are in agreement with that. We hope you are too. And the second waiver request, again, these are small waiver requests. This is a bit of a conflict in the code. The code allows a 0-foot building setback against a railroad. So we don't have to provide any building setback. We are providing some setback, but we're not required to. But the landscape portion of the code requires a landscape buffer whether your building's there or not. So what we need the waiver from is the landscape requirement. And what we propose to do, because the only folks looking at this are on a train or on the railroad tracks, is to put a metal artistic screening that will work with Sabile and the city staff on. And if we were to put the landscaping in, all we would do is cover up the artistic work that we plan to put on it. So it seems to make no sense. And then additionally, this existing hedge belongs to the FEC and it's on their property. So there already is a landscape hedge the hedge we would be required to put in and the trees we'd be required to put in would serve little purpose. It'd be hard to maintain them within 5 feet, and it would cover up the artwork that we intend to put on the west facade. So I hope you followed all of that.
Can you go back to that slide?
I'm sorry?
Just go back to that slide you were, the picture.
Absolutely.
So the FEC owns, what, 20 or 30 feet on each side of the track, right?
At least, yes, in some cases.
And so if I'm looking at this current view of parking lot on Palm Street, all of that foliage is their property?
Correct, including the hedge you're looking at.
Okay.
So we're talking, our discussion is about everything on the other side of the hedge.
And so on your side, on the property line, you would have like a grate or like a artistic,
Yes, screening.
some sort of metal screen.
On the garage.
Okay.
Now, we're not sure what that's going to look like. We're going to work with Sabile because, you know, we need to be careful that we don't ruin the ventilation of the garage. This is a perforated metal, but it doesn't allow the garage to breathe as well. So we need to be somewhat cautious how much we screen. But if there's a hedge beneath it completely blocking the first floor of the garage, it may be better to make it long, skinny, artistic, covering what you can see, or it could be different. It could be from top to bottom. We haven't worked that out. We haven't worked out the material, but I know you're all familiar with the perforated metal that can then be painted on. That's the concept, and we intend to work that out with staff prior to the City Commission meeting. Just want to make you aware of what the waiver is and why it's triggered. It's a weird conflict in the code. We can build a building with no setback.
You don't have to continue.
But you got to have a landscape setback, even if your building doesn't respect a setback. We meet all of the standards, or we believe we do, found in Section 94-32A for a major amendment to a PD. I won't go through these unless you would like me to. Staff agrees, except for the conditions that we are in dispute. And I feel confident we will work through those. We have no known neighbor opposition. In fact, we have a lot of neighbor support for what we're doing. It's obviously community serving. It's very expensive to raise the money to do this, to further serve the community that we've been serving for decades. I will note that this is a high-level problem to have, that we were here 11 years ago. We got a 39,000 square foot phase 2 approved, and we have to come back to you to make that 50% larger, because in the meantime, COVID and the post-COVID wealth migration to our community occurred, and we are now bursting at the seams with people, donors willing to pay for it, donors willing to give their art to our local art museum. So this is, we're very blessed to have this problem and the discussion we're having tonight. So with that, I will say thank you. Mr. Chair, one more item that we're not clear yet with staff. There is a condition. It is condition 2D as in Delta, small Roman numeral 1, that they're asking us to one-way both Jefferson Street to the north and Crane's Nest to the south. We're not sure that we're in agreement with that either. So I would ask that you hold in abeyance that one as well. I'm happy to discuss it, but the short story is on Jefferson Street, a lot of the public uses that as two-way traffic to move between Olive and Dixie. And it's my understanding that staff wanted to one-way that to circulate traffic when we have large events, meaning that would be eastbound only and Crane's Nest westbound only. That's sort of designing a church for Easter Sunday. We only have a couple of events a year that we would have any sort of stacking or circulation problem. They're usually at night, the gala, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. So I would submit that that's something we should take up with the City Commission, because I'm not sure it's worth the cost and inconvenience to the general public of one-waying a street that has been two ways for a century, so that 1 or 2 times a year we can avoid a stacking problem. But that's something we can take up with them. So we're asking for 2 of the proposed conditions of approval that we're not yet in agreement on, to have you put those aside and let the City Commission decide those. With that, we are concluded. I appreciate your attention.
Questions of the applicant?
The only, so, I mean, I have questions for staff, so I'll wait for the staff report, but the street north of Jefferson that basically goes, right now it's a two-way feeding PBA, right?
Yes.
So I think in order to decide on Jefferson, you'd have to understand what PBA's traffic flow is going to be,
Yes.
given the new dormitory, given the alleyway that's being closed because it now dead ends into the business school. And then you have that main street that goes into the archway where the cemetery is, right?
Yes.
So
I think
yeah,
that's an
and
excellent
I think
point.
making Jefferson a one-way is short-sighted because you got to figure out the whole rest of the neighborhood first rather than tie this to your applicant.
You know, that's an important observation, because normally when you have a one-way in one direction, the next street needs to be the one-way in the other direction. And we're looking at this a little myopically, only our campus and not the street to the north, which would theoretically have to go the other direction. And as you know, there's a lot going on at PBAU, a lot of construction and approval to expand the student body. So again, that's one more reason why we'd like some time to work through this with staff. It just doesn't seem that it's worth the effort, and it could cause a cascading set of problems for our neighbors.
Any other questions of the applicant? Did one of you, Patrick, do you have a question?
Yeah, I had one. In the setback table that you established in rewriting the setbacks, I'm assuming that you're not creating any areas of the building that have nonconformities. So what's currently built on site, you're not enshrining any nonconformity.
So there are, to my best knowledge, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, that there's no current nonconformities. But if we did not designate one in particular here, Jefferson, as a side, we would be creating a nonconformity with this proposed plan, because Jefferson would be considered a front setback. We'd have 3 front setbacks, which would require 25 feet, and those exterior garden walls would encroach on that.
Understood.
And so then we would be before you for a waiver. We had this discussion with staff, and it was staff's suggestion that we just designate Jefferson as a side rather than a front, and we cure that problem without a waiver.
Sure, most people only have one front.
Right. We have 3 presently.
Any other questions of the applicant? Gene?
What's the city's argument with the on-site parking? What's the sticking issue with that?
The parallel parking,
Correct, yes.
I'll let them address it, but I believe,
Well, I wanted to give him an opportunity to,
yep.
okay,
I believe it's just to increase the parking inventory in the neighborhood.
okay.
There's also an application that will be forthcoming from the Norton sometime in the next year, hopefully, to take the green space that runs down to the water and turn that into a more activated public sculpture park and art park. And what I've heard in some of the conversations is that will need parking. So why don't we have that created now?
I see.
And, you know, that is intuitive, except for the reasons that I presented to you. There's not enough real estate to do it. And by the time you move all the utilities, has it really been worth it to pick up 6 spaces? I would assert that if and when that project comes forward, that's the time for staff and this board and the city commission to figure out how you park those uses at that time. You don't impose on a project that is before you now a parking requirement for a project that hasn't even been submitted yet.
Got it. Thank you.
Just a quick question. Do you know what percentage of the Norton's collection is on display at any given time?
Oh, Keelan. 37%. I'm sorry? 37%.
I remember from the time you guys came before us, I was surprised, and I think that underscores the need for additional exhibition space. That's such a 2/3 of your collection you can't even show at any given time.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. We'd love to hear from you. Just state your name for the record.
Yes, I would say Guylain Dumier, director of the Norton. 37% in a way is more than many museums in the US, but the Norton and Mr. Norton always wanted quality versus quantity to be able to show the collection. And like Harvey was saying, in the last 5 years, when people come here, move in town, they're giving more masterpiece after masterpiece. The collection is getting unbelievable. And we do have Rembrandt right now. I'm not here to pitch, but you should come to see it. But this expansion of gallery for permanent collection and international exhibition coming, it's an unbelievable opportunity.
Thank you. All right, if there's no other questions of the applicant, go ahead, Patrick.
One quick question. Do we know on that eastern frontage how much currently the percentage of the overhead lines? Is it overhead lines across the whole frontage or is partially buried?
I think our entire frontage on Olive has overhead. We intend to underground ours as part of this project. But in doing that, we have to put that on our property. So to scoot that further inboard to accommodate parking and then underground our utilities, we wind up taking out existing trees.
Right.
We wind up pushing into the proposed Foster addition.
So you all will be undergrounding at least the electric on that
Is that a
frontage?
correct statement? That's a yes from our engineer.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. It's very unsightly.
All right, any other questions of the applicant? If not, let's hear from the city
Thank you.
staff.
Good evening, Planning Board members. For the record, Kevin DeFrank, Senior Planner with the City's Development Services Department, and I will be presenting staff's findings and recommendation for the subject agenda item, which includes the Plan Development Major Amendment requests, as well as the waiver requests from the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations associated with the new Norton Community Service Plan Development. And as the applicant's team presented, the waiver request includes a 73% reduction from the minimum setback requirements to allow the proposed parking garage to be located 6 feet and 8 inches from the southern property line along Palm Street. And the waiver request also includes a 100% reduction from the minimum hedges and trees requirements to allow for a landscape buffer without any hedges and trees along the western boundary, immediately abutting the FEC Railroad right-of-way, and staff does not object to any of these waiver requests. However, staff finds the request alone does not comply with all the amendment standards found within the city's zoning and land development regulations, and staff finds the request alone does not comply with all the site design qualitative development standards. And as provided in the staff report, subject to the granting of the requested waivers with compliance with the proposed conditions of approval, staff finds the request will comply with all the amendment standards. And staff finds the request will comply with all the site design qualitative development standards. And therefore, staff recommends an approval with conditions. And as provided in the staff report, here are the proposed conditions of approval. Condition number 1 must be satisfied prior to scheduling the subject case to a future City Commission meeting date. And that includes providing on-street parking. It also includes providing the fence and gate proposals meeting the current zoning and land development regulations. It also includes indicating that the proposed metal screen art wall along the proposed parking garage will comply with the public art requirements of the city's code of ordinances. And yes, there may need a finer tuning of condition 1C to reflect what the city's public art director would find applicable for this type of situation. And as provided in the last proposed condition of approval, staff indicates that a mural sign permit shall be obtained for the proposed metal screen art wall, and that the proposed metal screen art wall shall be installed on the proposed parking garage prior to CO. Now, the applicant's team brought up the issues with the on-street parking. So this was a condition proposed by the city's traffic engineer. Unfortunately, she's not here to provide her take on this item, but she wanted me to relay that this on-street parking is to be provided for the community, and it's not just for the expansion, the proposed expansion. And as you can see in the current approval for the CSPD, the plans demonstrate on-street parking. And the on-street parking spaces can be provided and designed entirely within the right-of-way. And that concludes staff's presentation, and I'm available for questions.
Okay, questions of staff. Let me start with you. Any questions? Oh, well, disappointed.
So you guys know me, I'm the parking guy, right? And normally I'd be like, yeah, this is great, do the on-street parking, but in this case I completely disagree.
Okay.
And the reason why is on both sides of the grass that will eventually become a future sculpture, garden, walk, whatever, you have multiple diagonal on-street parking with meters. Now, temporarily, the north side of it is being taken up by Flagler House for them to do their construction. Are those spots being eliminated? Okay, so how can we eliminate 20, 30 spots on the north side of that roadway and then compel them to add 6 spots on Olive? What's that?
Angela Van, System Plan Development Service Director. It's twofold with this project. Unfortunately, yes. When South Flagler House, which is the one that's under construction now, staff did approve, and you did approve as part of that, was the redo of those parking spaces and the landscaping and all. But as part of the future Norton expansion with the public art walk on the property, and in dealing with them now, they requested that those spaces be taken out. They would be back to you at some point in the near future with that request for a major amendment. So what staff, and again, we can't speak for the traffic engineer, unfortunately she could not be here tonight. The whole thing is, where do we put the parking? You say, but it's not directly, but indirectly because of the future development and what the Norton is trying to do with the art park, with the art walk, extending everything to that vacant property that they have a right to come and do. So that's what the traffic engineer is trying to do. Where do people come now who don't necessarily park at the parking garage across what Norton is building? If they have something, whether they park, whether they do. That's why she's talking about one-way pairing, the parking on street, parking on Olive, eventually probably getting rid of the roundabout that's there today, getting rid of that. So there's a whole lot more that's going into this, and that's why staff is saying we didn't have time, let us finish working out this part about it. That condition was in there for some reason, we don't know why. We went back and looked at the history of approvals for the Norton, not understanding why, but it was there, and it was approved as part of the site plan. So we still need to go back and work with their staff and with their traffic engineering and make a determination. But that's kind of why it's correlated between two projects.
It sounds like you're in agreement that this is a work in progress, trying to
Yes.
sort all this stuff out. So you would be supportive of what Harvey suggested, is that
Not to eliminate.
not to eliminate, but to let it continue.
Yeah.
Continue your discussion.
And I think we did that as a condition.
Yeah, yeah.
Prior to
And
scheduling before city commission
I think,
meeting.
because I was on the board when that thing came, I thought at the time the parking was needed. In other words, they didn't have the garage at the time, and I thought it was part of their parking requirement, they needed those spaces.
We not sure.
I'm not sure, but I mean, that was.
I mean, based on the history.
Well, I mean, it begs the question.
Trying to figure it out too. We're trying to figure it out
No,
too.
I get it, and it sounds like there may not be, it sounds like there's good faith discussions ongoing here,
Right.
trying to work through these issues. And I understood the applicant simply to request that we let those discussions continue
Correct.
and not make any recommendations with regard to those, other than to continue discussions and then tee it up for the city commission.
But we
to
have
make the final.
conditions of approval prior to scheduling before the city.
Yeah, I don't think they dispute any of these other conditions other than the one-way. Is that one of the conditions here as well, the one-way street?
Yes, that is correct. And that is another condition that was proposed by the city's traffic engineer.
Right, who I sure wish were here.
And this was to alleviate any concerns and to provide more efficient traffic circulation.
Did you think Will's point had validity, that there's a lot of other moving parts to this traffic going on? A lot of things that aren't finished yet?
Yes.
And do you think it would also benefit from further discussion and analysis?
I agree.
So it sounds like there may be consensus that these two things, let them continue talking. And I understand the applicant agrees with all the other conditions other than those two. Is that correct, Mr. Oyer? So there may not be, just to be clear, you're comfortable as long as we're allowing those to keep going. We're not eliminating those modifications, simply allowing those discussions to continue. And if the applicant accepts all the other conditions, then you're okay with that then?
Yes.
Okay, consensus, I love it.
Can you go back to the page with the conditions of approval? Okay, so based on what you're suggesting, we would not be recommending approval with that specific condition. That condition would need to be modified because
I guess we'd be saying that we would like, our direction would be that the parties continue their discussion on those two conditions. We're
Okay.
not making a recommendation either way on those two conditions, other than we want them to continue. We're not eliminating them, we're not affirming them, we're simply allowing the city and the applicant to continue their discussion, see if they can work that out.
All right, but as written, it says if they don't come to an agreement, it's not even going to go to city commission.
We'll go, then the city commission will have to then make a decision.
Okay, so that condition would be modified somewhat.
I
Well,
think, I'm sorry, as I understand it, these two conditions that there's not agreement, I think both sides think they would benefit from continued discussions as this worked its way to the city commission.
Okay.
If they're able to work it out, great, then they present a united front to the city commission. If they're not able to work it out, the staff takes a position, these things need to be there, the applicant takes a position they're not, and the city commission will then make that call.
Okay,
They just need more time.
okay, but then it could still go to city commission
Still
even if there's,
proceeding with- Yes.
okay,
And then all the other conditions the city wishes to impose, the applicant has accepted,
yeah.
right?
Is that right?
Is that right?
Can we just, I understand what you're saying, and that's fine because it says prior to scheduling for the city commission, can we put a condition, you can amend it, say staff will work with the applicant and the city staff to come to an agreement and revise plans and drawings acceptable to the city and the applicant or something like
I think
that.
that's exactly right, Angela.
May I add one more piece, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
And thank you. I think we're all conceptually in agreement here. We'll work together, as we often do, between Planning Board and City Commission. But I want to clarify, in condition of approval number 1, the wording is prior to scheduling for the City Commission.
But just address that.
Okay, so we're in agreement that we're removing scheduling. It's just
But the direction will be for the parties to continue to work together to try
right.
to resolve.
So prior to the City Commission, we need to have figured this out.
Right.
Because we're going to be scheduled immediately after
I
tonight.
understand. I think, Angela, if you're still there, sorry, I can't see you. But
Kevin's shaking his head.
she's over here. She's shaking her head yes or
He's
no.
shaking his head no, so let's,
Okay.
I don't
Isn't
think
that
we're
what you
in.
just said, Angela? I don't want to misrepresent.
It's twofold. Yes, the applicant wants to be scheduled immediately like they always do, but we got to work it out. And again, we need to give time. We will try to get them scheduled as soon as we can, but again, we need to have, work this out between them, us, and the traffic engineer. Again, this was last minute. We didn't have time to
Right.
really sit down and go back and
But do you
forth.
think within 30 days, one way or another, again, you're not
Yes,
obliged.
yes.
So then the
As long
point
as
is,
yes.
so all they're asking is that they proceed. The direction from the board would be that the applicant's instructed to continue to work with the city. We're not relieving them of this
This usually is,
obligation.
what, 6 weeks?
Yeah. So,
6 weeks between planning board and city commission.
yeah, so the instruction would be to the applicant that we're not relieving them of this condition, we're not imposing it on yet. The direction would be to continue to work with staff as the thing moves forward to the city commission.
So we are modifying it.
But I think the applicant is looking to have the city commission meeting scheduled as if everything were in agreement. And I think the city is saying that.
I think the question then becomes, are they allowed to move forward now? And I think what the applicant's saying, which makes sense to me, we have 6 weeks. If they move forward today, it's got to be 6 weeks before the city commission hears it. I think I heard Angela say 30 days should be sufficient one way or another to work
They
it out.
just shouldn't be prejudiced if, for some reason, they don't come to an agreement. I think the applicant was proposing that let the city commission decide. If we can't let them be, I believe he used the word arbiter of the issue. So if for some reason they don't come to an agreement, let the city commission decide what's reasonable.
We're only a recommending board anyway.
Right.
So we just won't have a recommendation on these two conditions. That will go directly to the city without our recommendation either way, because we're giving them time to continue their discussions.
And one last thing, what staff is saying, we will work with them, again, the 6 weeks, but that still gives, we have to write reports, get mailers out. It's just not that simple with staff and the workload. I don't necessarily want the board to put a condition that we have to put them in 6 weeks. We don't want to do that. That's up to, us to decide, and based on
What
our.
would you like us to do, Angela? What would you like us to do?
Basically what I just said, and prior to scheduling. It's going to be prior to scheduling, before we schedule it, that we will work with them.
But what if it,
I'm not going to give them, I can't stand up here and give you guys a specific date and time. It's not fair to us and not fair to staff, because we have to go and do the work and all.
Right.
We will work with them, and this applicant always know we've been fair to them, and even trying to get this on the agenda was a push for us to even get it on the planning board agenda. So what we're saying is we will work with them and get them to the next possible we can, based on the schedules, commission meeting. And I don't want to put a 6 weeks or 2 months or that meeting, or a meeting that's in, March or April or May. I don't want to put on neither one of us.
I think the concern is the applicant doesn't want to feel like they're held hostage in case that the city and the applicant don't come to some sort of agreement about the on-street parking. They'd like it to just go to the commission. And so maybe that's up to the planning board to say, okay, well, we're going to recommend approval to, if that's the consensus of the board, we're going to recommend approval to the city commission with these conditions that we recommend, and then see how it goes.
How many parking spaces are in the current surface lot?
More than enough.
More than enough.
More than enough.
not the current
Well,
one,
we're
that's why they're
figuring that out. I can answer.
How many are in the current
Question
surface?
from earlier.
What's that?
Because traffic engineer Chris Hagan was the traffic engineer on the 2015 version.
Okay.
And your recollection, Mr. Chair, is correct that the parking on Olive was required because they didn't meet the parking requirement. With the addition of the 3-story garage, we will now be over-parked for our proposed project. So the original reason for having those on Olive is obviated.
Gotcha.
Well,
So
and
I
that's
see-
the-
I see to the board, we have 4 choices here, how we can proceed. Choice 1 is we recommend this to the city commission and say we disagree with the city and agree with the applicant with regard to their position on those 2 issues. The other possibility is we do not recommend it to go forward because we agree with the city that until those 2 conditions are met, that we don't approve it. The third possibility is we say we direct them, the city staff, to continue to work with them, and only once they resolve it should it go forward to the city commission. Or the last possibility, which I think is what the applicant recommended, is we say our direction to the staff is continue to work on it. We are going to move this thing forward to the city commission with those 2 issues unresolved. And either the staff and the applicant resolve it before it gets to city commission, or the city commission will make the decision. I think those are our 4 possibilities, and we could do any one
Yeah,
of them.
I think that,
I think it's detrimental that the engineer is not here, because I think there are
Right.
questions that we could ask the engineer regarding his or her recommendation for parking based on the prior parking schematics versus the future parking. So but based on the argument the applicant has made, if now we have more than sufficient parking, and then,
So you're, based on the staff recommendations, right, what you'd be looking for is for us to approve with conditions with the exception of 1A.
Two of them. He doesn't want on the one-way direction. And
One way,
and the olive.
1A is one of them, and the other one is the two-way, or the one-way of what is currently two-way streets on
As I understand what
Crane's
Mr.
Nest
Oyer
and
is saying is
Jefferson.
he is not asking us necessarily to side with them on that. He's asking that they continue their discussions but allow their application to move forward to the city commission.
That is correct.
With those two issues unresolved.
So
while they're still
1A
together.
and 2D, small Roman numeral 1, we're not asking you to agree with us. We're just asking you to not let us be slowed down, because we may wind up at an impasse with staff, and then we would be in the position that one of your colleagues suggested. Now we can't even go to city commission.
Okay.
So we're going to resolve this very quickly, or we're going to agree to disagree and put it in front of the city commission. All that will happen well within that 30 to 45-day public notice window for the earliest possible city commission agenda we could be on. So of the four options that the chair outlined, we would be in favor of the fourth one.
Or
Which,
the other one, right? We simply agree with
or
you.
the first one, yeah. But look, I think it's a fair debate for the staff to have with our traffic engineer. We could be wrong about this. And as Angela said, we didn't have time to work through this, but we will clearly work through it in 30 to 45 days. We're either going to say, yes, you're right, we'll do it, or we're going to say, we'll let the commission decide. But just to put this in perspective, the proposed cost of this is about $200 million. The escalation, the entire project, $200 million. Not the entire project. But by delaying this, and Patrick can attest to this, the inflation in construction cost in Southeast Florida right now is way beyond CPI. So whatever that is, call it 1% a month. Every month that you delay us is a substantial cost. And that comes out of our donors, or it's a reduced program or a cut project. So I implore you, please don't slow us down. If we can't figure this out in 30 days, we'll let the city commission decide. That's what they've been elected to do.
Thank you. Before we continue discussion, Kevy or Angela, if you want to come forward and add your 2 cents more, because I'd love to get your input as to why you think that proposal of allowing it to move forward to the city commission, still giving you folks time to continue your discussions, still giving you the option to say to the city commission, we don't agree with this, because at the end of the day, we're only a recommending board anyway. It's still their decision.
Right.
But I'd love to hear from you as to what your thoughts are on what you've been hearing.
Well,
Or either of you, or both of you.
and I wanted to
Good evening, Ana Maria Ponte, Development Services Director. I think, we have been working with this applicant to be able to present this project in front of you. We run so much these past 2 weeks that it shows our commitment to move this project forward. So we are not here to hold this project. What we are trying to put with the condition is that we want to have the time to discuss with the applicant what are the reasons why they cannot do it,
Right.
and what are the reasons why the city thinks it's a better option.
And Anna-Marie, what's a reasonable period of time to do that?
What happens is we have internal deadlines that we have to meet. We have to have the item in the system 30 days before the city commission meeting.
Right.
And that's difficult. So that means that if we say, usually we take 45 days. Once you approve the project in planning board, the project has been vetted, the plans are okay, we take those plans and just put it through the system. So it's fine.
No, but I was asking, how much time do you think typically to work through this issue, not with your attorney, just to make the planning decision? What's the solution?
The issue is Veronica and Chris have not been able to meet and sit down and discuss the pros and cons of this. And I understand from the traffic engineer comments that the on-street parking spaces were not only related to the future Norton Park, they were also needed for the stacking of the impacts of the new drop-off area on Olive, the new ballet operation, that the traffic engineer had concerns of the possible impact on Olive Avenue. So the on-street parking could help alleviate that impact. I'm not a traffic engineer, our traffic engineer is not here,
Right.
so we just want that time. We're not gonna hold the project, we're gonna try to find a solution, understand each of the
My only
points.
question is, it seems like there should be enough time between now and when the city commissioned here to give this a fair chance to resolve it on its own. And if you're not satisfied with the resolution, you get to go to the decision maker, which was
Correct.
never us,
Yes,
to say why they're wrong. So,
correct.
so
We're
what's
not
the, what's
gonna
the
hold
harm
the
is what I'm
project
trying
to
to say
say-
in allowing it to move forward
We are fully in support of allowing this to move forward.
to the
as-
city commission. That's
to the
all.
city
And we'll
commission.
leave those two issues open. We're not agreeing with them.
Yes.
We're not disagreeing
we are
with them. We're simply leaving it open.
Perfectly okay with that.
So you're okay with their proposal?
Totally,
Okay,
totally.
Okay. Consensus again.
That's why you're
That's why I'm a mediator.
You're a mediator, exactly.
All right.
Although,
All right.
just so we're clear, using those spaces to stack or a potential off-street ingress lane to valet is completely different than making them parking spaces, right? So again, it goes back to what's the intent of the engineer. So that's
there
my
may-
2
and
cents.
There
Just
might be
wanted to say it.
creative solutions too. For example, if one of the reasons they want it is they want parking for the public, if there's a park with art there, maybe they work some deal with the Norton where certain spaces are made available for free or something, where those 6 spaces could be, there are other ways that the city's needs could be addressed short of requiring them to build.
The other thing to keep in mind is FDOT is going to do a major resurfacing project on Dixie Highway. They are creating parking across the street. They have a signalized traffic light that allows people to safely cross the street to get to the museum. They are putting in a signalized crosswalk at Flamingo Park leading directly into Table 26. So all of the intensives of uses are being put onto Dixie Highway. It doesn't make sense. In my recollection of our approval of PBA, part of the reason why we approved the parking structure the way it was is because they were going to offer parking to non-students, right, to alleviate the parking issues in the neighborhood. We did not enforce them to build parking spots in front of their new 30-story dormitory. It seems like we're spot requiring this because it was from a 2015 rule. And in the grand scheme of things, with all the development happening there, I don't see the major impact that 6 parking spots is going to have.
It's all part of a
on
good,
that
it's all
street.
part of a good discussion
So-
that they're going to have. Is there anyone that's uncomfortable with the proposed resolution, which is that we would be approving this, all the conditions being required other than these 2 we've identified that will be left open, and the recommendation of the City Commission will be to move forward with this with the hope that the applicant and the staff will be able to resolve these last 2 open issues? I mean, just conceptually, is
I mean,
everyone?
I have some concern. I have some concern when I hear that the traffic engineers haven't even had a conversation on these 2 items ahead of this hearing, because it kind of puts us in a bind, and you're asking us to just kind of, punt the football because they haven't had that proper planning conversation.
I agree, but our direction will be for them to move forward to try to work it out during this interim
Certainly,
time
but
period.
that's saying that we're basically saying it's
So-
no
so-
longer in our.
So what would be the alternative if we didn't do that? Will we just delay it
Well,
and go
I-
forward to the city commission then until they've had that discussion? Is that
I
your
mean,
thinking?
I think this project certainly needs to move forward as quickly as possible, as the applicant has suggested.
So I'm not clear what the alternative is.
Moving
to-
based on the evidence before us, right?
Yeah, and we don't have the evidence of this
We don't
traffic
have it
engineer.
before us, so we're just, because we don't have the evidence, we're saying, well, we can't weigh in on that.
Right.
And we're punting it.
Mr. Chair, can I share some information just to be clear? Our traffic engineer has talked to the city engineer. They have not met in person. but I don't want this board to think there's been no communication, we're all shooting in the dark. They've had communication, they just disagree, and they agreed to get together and see if they could work out their disagreement. But there has been communication, and Chris has been one of the two communicators.
Just to put it on the record, Chris Hagan with Kimley Horn Associates, I'm transportation engineer. And prior to the staff report coming out, I did have a phone conversation with Veronica. We had discussed both of these items in depth. Both of us explained, I think, our interpretation and professional opinion on the matter. Both of us had disparate opinions on it. Again, the staff report at that time had not yet been published. We just, again, had a conversation on the issues. And so even the exact wording of the condition wasn't in place. So the staff report just came out a few days ago. So we saw that, read through how it ended up being worded. So again, both of us have shared our professional opinions on it, but obviously we'll still need to discuss further to see if we can come to some sort of agreement.
Are you hopeful something can be resolved? You've done these type things before. It seems like a binary thing, yes or no. Is there?
Yeah, it depends. I think I'm not sure that we will, but I think it's still worth an effort, and we will certainly. We're absolutely committing to make that effort. And I think that was in that conversation she brought up. Was I think one of the first times, or the first time we'd heard about the potential to one-way Crane's Nest and one-way Jefferson. As we discussed it, I took that back to the team. We discussed it further. I think that thinking about Crane's Nest and the context of that roadway, we thought that made a lot of sense. And when we are agreeing with that portion of the condition. If you drive those two roads, they're completely different. Crane's Nest is narrow. It has on-street parking next to the curb. It's got single-family homes on both sides of the road. Jefferson is wide open, two lanes that are extremely wide, and in addition, the parking that's provided there is outside of the regular
Sounds
curb.
like you're more optimistic agreement on that issue.
So it may be, but as we discussed it, I said, well, it doesn't make sense on Jefferson, and explained the reasons why, but she continue to explain why she felt it was necessary. Right. So we'll continue, but again, I think there's at least halfway agreement that Crane's Nest, we're not really opposed to Crane's Nest going to one way.
Okay, all right. So I'm sorry, Pat, did we finish the issue you brought up? All right.
And I appreciate the clarification.
So does anyone prefer a different outcome than what we've been discussing? I just want to see if there's consensus on the board.
Based on my read of, just the presentations and the dialogue, I don't know that they will come to a conclusion, so I'm comfortable recommending approval aside from those two conditions where, if not resolved, the city commission would need to resolve it. But in good faith, I think both parties typically work well together and they have conversation, but I just don't know that they'll come to an agreement.
I don't disagree at all. Patrick, are you comfortable with that? And how about you?
With that.
Yeah. How about you? Okay. If there's hold it. Anyone from the public wish to be heard on this?
They all left already.
No, but I don't get in trouble for that. It's called due process here. All right. For no one in the public, then we're bringing it back to the board. If there is consensus, then we'll look for a motion. Sam, you have a troubled look. Before we do the motion, what's your concern?
Just that with the condition, there is that portion of the motion that addresses when you change the condition. So you do the motion to approve with that changed condition provision that's in the motion you have printed.
That wasn't clear. I'm so sorry. So if someone understands it, then whoever, I can't make the motion, so give it, who's going to be the brave soul who's going to make the motion?
That has a modified.
Right.
Okay.
I think it's all you, Gene.
So we do here.
Here, Gene.
Yeah, let's give it the lawyer down there.
Let's give it to you. Yeah, let the lawyer say it.
The other lawyer will say it. I'm not allowed to make a motion.
You're all lawyers. You're a lawyer too, right?
Of course.
Of course. Everybody's a lawyer? You're a lawyer.
Everyone gainfully employed.
I move that the planning board recommend to the city commission approval of planning board case number 1674H, a request by Meredith Lee of Schutz & Bowen LLP on behalf of Norton Museum of Art Incorporated for a major amendment to the Norton Community Service Plan Development, CSPD, with waivers from the city's zoning and land development regulations to allow for the expansion of the existing museum building with related improvements to the site, reconfiguration of the existing surface parking lot, construction of a proposed parking garage, and changes to the CSPD master signage plan. The motion is based upon the testimony presented at the hearing along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitute competent, substantial evidence. The Planning Board hereby makes findings of fact that the application complies with the required standards in sections 94-32A and 94-35C of the City of West Palm Beach zoning and land development regulations. In addition, this recommendation is made subject to the conditions of approval contained in the staff report dated January 21st, 2026, with further condition that the condition numbers, I believe it's 1A and 2D, be left unresolved. We would ask that the applicant and the city work on these, and if ultimately they reach an impasse, that it would be resolved with the City Commission. I move that these conditions as modified are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the zoning and land development regulations and consistency with the comprehensive plan of the City of West Palm Beach.
Sam, is that good?
Good.
Okay, we have a motion approved by Sam and a second.
All right.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, and Mr. Oyer, we're counting on good faith discussions with the staff. We want to hear that you guys worked it out.
Thank you for working through that with us.
All right.
We appreciate it.
Sure thing. All right, that then brings us then to, we have two code revision cases, both city initiated one, and we will begin with Code Revision Case 26-1, Ms. Aponte. I understand these are going to be very abbreviated presentations. Was my information correct?
Yes.
She's ignoring me. I get that I get that at home. I don't need that here.
Yes, they are very abbreviated. We don't have any issues to resolve.
Oh, excellent.
So Ana Maria Aponte, Development Services Director for the record. This is a city-initiated text amendment to Chapter 94, Zoning and Land Development Regulations, to Article 7, Special Districts, to have two different changes. One is to amend the Broadway Mixed-Use District regulations to clarify provisions regarding the development of townhouses within the district, and to amend the current mixed-use district regulations to modify the height bonus incentive requirements for improvements to Curry Park. So I'm gonna divide the presentation in two. First, I'm gonna talk about the Broadway mixed-use district. A little bit of history is, if you remember, last year, around March, the City Commission approved Ordinance 5122-24, adopting new regulations for the Broadway mixed-use corridor. The Broadway is the redevelopment area, approximately 43.9 acres along the north corridor, Broadway corridor on the north end of the city. It goes from 25th Street all the way to the city limits on the north, and it basically is on both sides of Broadway and adjacent to the single-family residential neighborhoods that are on both sides, but it's just the commercial corridor along Broadway. So the City Commission approved regulations last year to promote the redevelopment of the district. Initially, the main principles were basically promote the redevelopment as a mixed-use district with emphasis on residential uses, protect the single-family residential fabric adjacent to the corridor, but also improve the quality of the public realm to create an attractive pedestrian-friendly corridor. These are images from the approval process. You can see the intention was like redevelop existing empty lots into the base zoning is a three-story commercial building, or it could be a three-story residential, but a smaller scale. And then we created an incentive to promote multifamily residential buildings that could go up to 7 with provisions for some workforce housing. But that was kind of the concept. One of the typologies that was proposed as adequate for the corridor and also for what we call the BMOD expanded area, that is certain areas that could go on the residential districts, primarily on the west side of the corridor, is the townhouse typology. It seems to be appropriate. The lots on Broadway are very narrow, so putting a multifamily building is a little bit challenging and requires some work. So a townhouse could work very easily. So that was a typology that was permitted within the district and some identify as a viable and attractive option. These are some examples of what could be this type of townhouse development. However, as we are developing and just moving ahead and starting to receive projects, it has been identified that some of the adopted provisions may conflict with the construction of townhouses specifically for sale. Not the regular rental, but if somebody comes with a project for sale, we have some provisions that conflict with that. In particular, this is regarding the mid-block setbacks. So the provisions specifically establish that interior lot lines will be required a mid-block setback or a side setback. That is established as 5 feet. The provisions specifically establish that if you have aggregate adjacent lots under the same ownership, that interior side setback is not required. But when you have a product that is a townhouse for sale, each of those houses will be owned by a different entity. So if we apply the regulation, they will have to have a 5-foot setback, each of them, which is, of course, not the intent of the regulation or the nature of the typology. So we are simply just amending the code to specifically say that that interior lot setback is not required for townhouses. That's as simple as that.
Right.
Then another minor change that we are doing is also regarding townhouses, but it may be used for other typologies within the district, and is regarding the location of front steps. The regulation for Broadway is very specific. One of the big things that we did is create a very specific design of what the public realm will be in front on Broadway and also on the side streets. Specifically on Broadway, the intention was the buildings were supposed to be set back 17 feet from the back of the curve and dedicate 7 feet for landscaping, street furniture, and that type of elements, then a 5-foot clear zone, and then we have a 5-foot frontage zone that could be used for sidewalk seating if you have a cafe, but if you have residential use, that area is supposed to be used for the steps of those townhouses or maybe the ADA accessible ramp for a ground floor residential or some other elements that are needed. Well, the regulation has some discrepancies on it, so we just want to clarify that basically that area that is known as the frontage zone could be used for steps as long as they do not encroach into the clear area for the pedestrian path. And this is just an image of how these, as in particular, the townhouses work. So you have the steps leading to the townhouse, but then you have the sidewalk next to it, and that is left clear of any intrusion of the steps into it. So it's just clarifying the regulation. There were some discrepancies in the rules, so we just want to be crystal clear that it is permitted and it could function. Those are the 2 changes that we are proposing for the B mod. Then we go to the C mod, the current mixed-use district. This is even easier. The current mixed-use district also is a mixed-use, compact, pedestrian-oriented district, a redevelopment area. It is located between 27th Street on the north, 14th Street on the south, Flagler Drive on the east, and Dixie Highway on the west. This was a mixed-use district that the regulations were changed, I would say probably 5 years ago. And part of the regulation basically established different sub-districts with specific characteristics that included maximum heights allowed by each of them. Part of the regulation also established additional height for each of these sub-districts that was permitted in exchange for public benefits. And those public benefits are specified in this table in the code that lists different options. So for properties that were adjacent to the extension of Norwood Road, for example, they could trade the land necessary for Northwood Road extension, and they could go higher. They have an option to provide workforce housing on the site, and they could basically buy additional feet in height. One of the provisions that we have in here is the improvements to Curry Park. So the developers could opt for the option to increase the height and pay for improvements on Curry Park. The current language specifically says that they could have 1 foot in height per every $25,000 in contribution for the construction of improvements or payments made into Curry Park. So we have one particular project that is already under construction that has opted for this option. It's the Olara Residential, and based on what they approve, they will have a contribution of $3.6 million to the Curry Park. This contribution will be payable at the time of CO. So since the regulation was approved, a few things have kind of changed. We have already designed a Curry Park, and we are, all happy about that, under construction. So completion of the park is expected in January 2027. So the reason why we are in front of you today is because the city would like to modify the language in the incentive to allow additional flexibility for the use of the funds. Right now, the language is very specific. It says it's for the construction of improvements, or they could do the improvements themselves, or they can give the money to the city for the construction of the improvements. We would like to modify the language that allows the money to be given to the city for the construction, but also for operations, management, and programming of the park itself. As we know, the park is under construction. Once the park is completed, it's already funded, so we don't need additional money for construction. But once the project is completed, we will need the funding for the operations and programming of the park until the park basically reaches stability and they can sustain themselves with the programming and all the system that is being set up right now. So that's the reason why we're proposing the change. We would like the flexibility to use those funds also for operation and maintenance and not only for construction. In addition to that, we would like to add language to the code that was not established in the code that says when the contribution is paid. So the project that I mentioned before, the Olara, the site plan approval letter established that the contribution was payable at CO. We would like to include language on the code that says 50% of the or the contribution will be paid at the issuance of the first building permit affecting vertical construction, and then 50%, the remaining 50% will be payable at the time of the first certificate of occupancy, TCO or CO, whatever is its best. So that is something that we're adding to the code. This is the new language that we are proposing, so I'm not going to read it, but basically those are the premises that allows the flexibility to the city. That is the amendment proposed for the CMOD. We have analyzed the proposed amendments based on the standards in the code, section 9432. The staff believes the proposed amendments meet all the amendment standards in the code. And therefore, staff is recommending approval of the code revision case number 2601 based on the finding that the petition complies with the amendment standards in section 9432 of the zoning and land development regulations.
Okay.
That concludes the staff presentation.
Quick question. Is the project fully funded right now?
The Curry Park, yes, the phase 1 is fully funded. The phase 2, that will be the boardwalks, is not.
So why take away the option for the developer to, I guess, do an in-kind contribution for the improvements as opposed to?
No, we're not taking it away. We're leaving it, but we are giving the city the flexibility of use the funds for the operation if it's needed.
Okay, I thought the other part of that was the funds go to the city directly and then.
The language is written has the option. The developer could, the language was written that they could do the improvements. The improvements have to be approved by the city, or they could give the money to the city and the city will do it.
But the developer can still do the improvements.
The developer can. Right now we have well-established plan. The city is doing the improvements, so we don't expect the developers to do
Okay.
that at this point. But maybe in the future, once the project is completed and maybe some minor thing is needed, maybe that at that point, the developer could do the improvements.
Okay, and then do you think the 50% will that be detrimental? I mean, so for instance, if, you've got a new construction project and you haven't sold any units, having to give 50% up front, is that harmful?
Well, the 50% is at issuance of building permit. Usually, the developers do not start construction of the project if they have not basically sold enough units to have the project.
Okay.
So we are working right now. Shorecrest, that was approved by the board in October, they were the ones who offered that split.
Okay.
So.
And I don't see any developers here to object, so. Okay, yeah, okay.
Well, we'll wait till we get to the
Yeah.
comments from the public, Gene. Let's not prejudge that. Okay, any other questions?
One question. Back to the BMUD, the 5-foot zone are you all still, I'm sure there's a height maximum to the encroachment of the stairs in that 5-foot zone? Just like, it's not going to become a visual obstruction along the roadway.
Yeah, I mean, they could not, the idea is they will not be able to encroach into the clear path.
But does that account for traffic sight triangles and?
Well, this is very back. Yeah, yes, no, I see what you're saying. No, yes, that is still applies.
Okay.
Yes, they will have to comply still with that, depending of the number of steps that they have. If for some reason they are within the visibility triangle, they could not do it, yes.
Got it, okay.
And I have one more. So is there some sort of a Curry mixed use or a Curry Park board? Who's governing the use of the funds? Is it just the city at will, or is there a separate committee, or?
Yeah, very interesting question. So that's what the city is setting up right now. The intention is that the Curry Park will be have its own governing board, and that board will have its own staff, and it will be kind of an independent agency. So the CRA is leading right now that initiative to create all that governing structure of how the operation and management of the park will function. So that has not been established yet. So at this point, the funds are just given to the city into a specific account dedicated for Curry Park. But once this whole government structure is established, those funds will be allocated to that.
Okay, but either way, the funds are earmarked for Curry Park.
Yes, they are very much earmarked for Curry Park.
All right, any other questions of staff? And if not, anyone from the public wish to be heard? Well, you called that one right, Gene. All right, we'll bring it back to the board. Anyone have any issues or concerns about this proposal? And if not, then we'll look for a motion for approval. We still have a working quorum with Will gone? Yes.
Yes,
Right, we do.
I'll make the motion.
All right.
Go ahead.
I move that the planning board recommend to the city commission approval of code revision case number 26-1, city initiated request for text amendment to chapter 94, zoning and land development regulations, article 7, special districts, section 94-219, Broadway mixed use district, and section 94-220, Broadway mixed use district expansion, to clarify provisions regarding the development of townhomes, and section 94-215, Curry mixed use district, to modify the height bonus incentive requirements for improvements to Curry Park. The motion is based upon the testimony presented at the hearing, along with a staff report, which constitute competent substantial evidence. The planning board hereby makes finding of fact that the application complies with the required standards in section 94-32 of the City of West Palm Beach zoning and land development regulations.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thanks so much. All right, last on our agenda is planning board, the code revision case 26-2. Ms. Van.
And Board Angela Van, System Development Service Director. This is a city-initiated request to establish procedures for requesting reasonable accommodation for Fair Housing Act and for American Disabilities Act for reasons and to permit recovery residents within multifamily structures or districts, as long as they meet certain requirements in order to be in compliance with state statutes. The city currently has established an informal process for persons that need to request a reasonable accommodation dealing with FHA or ADA, reasons. As you can see, most of the requests we get are usually for handicap ramps in the front setbacks or for additional driveway widths, the front yard to meet the 75% landscape requirements. But as of July of last year, the Florida statutes changed and now requires all government entities to provide a formal process within their regulations for anyone requesting reasonable accommodations. So we see it for that, and we also see reasonable accommodations for Fair Housing Act, usually associated with community residents. That usually deals with a number of unrelated persons that we require in the city. You can have no more than 3 unrelated persons in one structure. So that's usually what we get those for community residents. The second part of the request is it also requires the municipalities to allow recovery residents by right within multifamily structures and zoning districts if they meet certain requirements. Those requirements basically are that the recovery residence was voluntarily certified on or before July 1st of last year, and that's through the state certification requirements as far Florida Association of Recovering Residents. So it had to be voluntarily certified only before then, because again, it's voluntary at that point. The residence located in a multifamily structure or zoning district permits up to 2 residents per bedroom, and multifamily structure in the city means a building with 3 or more units. So building a duplex would not fall under this requirement. It's just a building that has, by zoning and building code, 3 or more units. And the text, you basically can see, is a long, drawn-out process of text that's in the staff report, but staff recommends approval of CRC case 2602 is presented by staff, and approval based on the findings that the petition meets all 8 of the required amendment standards found in section 9432 of the regulations. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
So, Angela, this is required to put the city in compliance with the new
Yes.
state law?
Yes.
I mean, it's not more complicated than that, is it?
No, just required.
By the way, how much does this deviate from our practices before?
I mean, basically, they have certain requirements on the application that we have now, informal process that we have, so really nothing
So you had an
is
informal
changed. I just have
process,
to.
now you have to formalize it
I have
to
a
comply with
formalized
the new
process.
state
I have to
law.
put the applications, has to be downstairs with the city clerk. It's a lot of things we have to do to make sure people know that where they can come and apply for reasonable accommodation if they need to.
And Sam, because you would like the city to be in compliance with the law,
It's a good idea, I think, Mr. Chair.
Any questions of staff? Would anyone from the public wish to be heard? Okay, bring it back to the board. Anyone have any issues, concerns, questions? I know you hate to get out of here too soon, so I don't want to force the issue. And if, looking for a motion then.
Hold on, I just had it up. Give me a second.
You've got it, Pat.
Just do.
Oh, it was on the screen, now it's
I know,
gone.
go for it.
I gotta find it.
Uh-oh, it was on the screen. It's gone.
I move that the planning board recommends approval for CRC 2602. This motion is based upon the factual testimony presented, the staff report, and the findings that the proposed amendment complies with all the amendment standards found in section 9432 of the zoning and land development regulations.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. That then brings us to other business, unfinished business, new business. Nothing, Angela? All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Wow. 200.